Hello, my name is Ruth Nelson, and welcome to this week's Master Coaches Weekly Buzz, hosted by John Foreman. We continue to update our viewers on most current issues and trends during our conversations with leaders in our sport. Our most recent interviews with seven-time NCAA national champion Penn State head coach Russ Rose and eight-time NCAA Final Four appearance Florida head coach Mary Weiss provided us some great insight into Big Ten and SEC volleyball. The latest newsflash, as reported by the sports director of the National Federation of High School Coaches, there are now only 17 states that will not be playing high school volleyball this fall and have moved to winter and or spring season. Last week's discussion with JVA allowed club directors and coaches input on how they're working with their local high schools and high school federations. To stay on top of these conversations, go to jvavolleyball.org and sign up for Dig These Tips. Now, did you know that Brian Giammalero, while at Long Beach State, was the first NCAA Division I volleyball team ever to finish the season undefeated? And Bob Bertucci is the only Tennessee women's volleyball coach to win 3 SEC championships. And Mick Haley, believe it or not, was a setter at Ball State under legendary coach Don Shondell. Now, all will be asking our guests the tough questions on Big Ten and SEC volleyball and what does volleyball at the collegiate level look like moving forward during COVID-19. First, let's go to former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our guest today.
Thank you, Ruth. But let me say a little bit about Ruth Nelson, since she really had fun with us. Ruth is a former national team player and an assistant national team coach. She was a head coach at Iowa, LSU, and Houston, and is part of the AVCA Hall of Fame, has been inducted there. She's now specializing in training of methods for 12 and unders, and she's founder of the BYOP and Kid Youth Sports programs. Ruth, thank you for introducing us with such great credentials. I really, really appreciate that. And I know Brian and Bob do too. Today, we have two very, very exciting guests. John Cook, 4-time national championship coach at Nebraska, 749 career wins, AVCA Hall of Fame member with Ruth and Brian, and 19 years at Nebraska. Boy, 19 years, John, that's a pretty good track. Craig Skinner also is on today. SEC champions the past 3 years, 15 years of straight appearances for Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, and has been at Kentucky 16 years to date with 353 wins. Welcome to both of you guys. Thanks for being on. And I'm going to go right ahead and direct this first question to John, especially since you're hiding out up in Idaho, John. My question, I think, will be pertinent. What in the heck is going on? What's the plan for your team for this fall, and what's the Big Ten doing to give you guidance for handling this fall? And Craig, I'll come to you because I know you'll have a different answer.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Big Ten is providing us with no guidance right now. We have another scheduled call tomorrow, so they're trying to figure out football. With our team, the reason I'm in Idaho is fortunately for Nebraska, we were able to have our athletes there starting June 1st. So they were there all summer. We started off practice. We went 4 days. And then, of course, the announcement came to shut down the season. So we had not started school yet. So I want to make sure our players, anticipating a spring championship and the spring season, that they would have some type of break. So we turned them loose, and they actually just started school yesterday. And we'll start back in our 8 hours per week next week, and start building through a fall. And the good thing is for me, I haven't done this. We haven't done a spring season because we played beach, so we haven't done it since 2011. So both my assistants came from the men's program, so they're used to this fall training schedule and then building for a spring. So I'm relying really hard on those guys on how to do this and how to work through it and manage it. But we want, my biggest concern is if we go all the way to May or June with a tournament, we got to pace these guys and not burn them out.
So is the rest of the Big Ten doing the same thing, or are they going off on their own?
Yeah, so like I said, we started June 1st. We were the first school to have all of our athletes back. I know, for example, then you go all the way to the other spectrum. Northwestern just got back last week. So, I mean, for any of their athletes. So it depends on, a lot of the schools went through the summer and got their athletes back at some point over the summer. So most of them, I think, are still training. Again, and what we've been told on our compliance call we had the other day is that, you're going to get this 132-day deal. And, if you're practicing now, that's going to count to your 132 days. So we're trying to bank our days that we could actually train more than 8 hours per week, that block of time, and build toward the spring season.
Thank you, John. So, Craig, we understand that you guys in the SEC are playing this fall, and so what direction are you getting, and is all of the conference doing the same thing?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm humbled by this crowd right here. A lot of accomplishments that I can dream of right now, but it's interesting. Like John, our team's been here since the end of June and training, and then we started practice on July 5th, practice all the way till last Friday. And, we still don't have exact direction yet on what our schedule will look like this fall. I know we'll be playing matches at some point, in October. That'll happen. So like John, after Friday's practice, we just gave the team 2 weeks off, because if we're going to be going through the end of April, I just see no point in grinding it out. I mean, this is going to be one of the toughest mental challenges, I think, as for all of us coaches, but also the athletes, because there's been so much, are we going, are we not? When's the schedule? Are we going to play this fall? Are we not? What does it look like? And so we felt like as a staff, it was important to give them a couple weeks off. And I think we'll know later this week, if not sooner than that. But I've been saying that for 3 weeks. So it's, I'm tired of telling my team that that's what to anticipate. And so when we get the information, we'll have to adapt and figure it out. But I do believe we'll be playing some matches this fall, yes.
So just to kind of make sure I understand, John, you're saying the Big Ten is reversing the process of having spring practice in the fall and looking forward to trying to have fall practice in the spring. But Craig, am I understanding that you're doing fall practice normally and then you will have a spring practice as normal, or it seems like that's a little confusing?
Yeah, well, from my understanding, and they're voting on the possibility of a hybrid schedule, which we would play a few matches that would count towards our SEC Conference Championship this fall. I don't know exactly how many, the number for each team, starting in October, at some point in October. So we will go into 8 weeks here shortly to, like John said, there's 132 days, and then we'll go into, 20-hour weeks as it gets closer to that, the date we would compete. And then the rest of our schedule would be played as it gets closer to when the NCAA announces the championship. And, currently the NCAA has said the right things, but they haven't said anything definitive. So we can't guarantee to our players that there is going to be an NCAA championship. So the nice thing, at least now, is that no eligibility is compromised, and, our players don't lose the opportunity to play a regular season as we know it normally. So if we get the opportunity to play some matches, we're looking forward to it.
Okay.
This is Brian. Thanks both of you for coming on. Retirement looks pretty good right now. I'm not sure what I'd be doing right now. Ruth keeps sending out information to us about what's going on. My question is, are any of you concerned about 132 days, but it has to be consecutive? Meaning, the normal pace. For example, John, you said you practiced 4 days and then stopped. Both of you, John, we'll start with you. But what are they telling you about that? Starting and stopping and all that.
Yeah, we were, so Monday morning, I had a call with our compliance people because I wanted to get these answers. And what we were told Monday is that it's not going to be consecutive. So they're going to let you break it up. So they've done a waiver on that. So that's a great question. And also, I think the things that Craig and I are both saying, nothing is set in stone. And we're just betting that this is what's going to happen. Because, coaches like to make plans. And everybody is so sick and tired of, make a plan and then it changes the next day. So we're just kind of betting this is what's going to happen. And I know I'll throw out a date that I've been told in the Big Ten is September 16th is kind of the date the NCAA is going to say, hey, here's what we're doing in the spring. And Craig, I don't know if you've heard anything else on that or not.
Roughly middle of September, yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Brian.
Craig, go. What are you doing? Just continue with the same question.
Yeah, to your point and John's point, we like to plan and we like to know what's ahead of us. We, typically, it's 3 out of 5 matches or 3 out of 5 sets, and or there's 9 innings, or their game is 60 minutes, and now we don't know any of that right now. So, like John, I've heard that the 132 days is there's a waiver and it doesn't have to be consecutive, which the spring has kind of been that way the last few years anyway. But we're looking for more direction on that because we've already practiced in the 20-hour week for 2 weeks, so we're trying to find out, does that count towards our 132 days, or are they providing waivers since, nothing was set in stone for the NCAA championship and they moved it to the spring. And, it's, again, another reason I think this is probably the Mount Everest of mental challenges for Division I athletes this year. And, so giving them some time off, I think to just be a student and visit with their families and be with their friends, to me, and it sounds like with John, was more important right now until we do have a plan, knowing what we're doing going forward.
How are the players reacting to all this, generally?
Brian, first of all, I'm having trouble focusing today because I keep thinking of the matches we lost to Long Beach and the matches we lost to USC. So I'm trying to work through those in my head right now. I want to talk about those, but I've seen the craziest things from our players, their reactions, how they've handled COVID. It's been really, really interesting. I think you could do a case study on how this has impacted them. I'm really thankful that our players have been on campus, and we have a sports psychologist who has had a major impact on kind of meeting with some of the ones that are struggling with this. It's been really hard. Really, really hard for our players. And I think I've got a pretty veteran team and some pretty mature kids. And I've just seen them, the good news is they're staying out of parties and bars and those things. I think we've been really good about that, but I've seen some of them really mentally struggle.
Yeah, and agreed. I think I probably am more proud of our players going through this and what they've gone through since March 12th than I have of any team, because they've been able to keep chugging along, but it hasn't been easy. It's been a grind, especially as we've gotten closer to August and, in the summertime, and we're getting into 2-a-days and there's still not sure about NCAA championship. And, so it has been tough. And like John, having our, sports psychologists be involved and offering, things like that. And we've really challenged our players to train their minds and, whether that's meditation or however they want to go about it, to just, stay at peace and be where their feet are, like everyone, says. But probably one of the reasons I'm most encouraged about the possibility for us playing this fall is just some sort of normalcy to play a competition and to play a match. And as long as we're safe and we're testing in an appropriate manner and being able to make sure all our players are safe and staff are safe, I'm all for it, just to have them have some competition. And I hope that John and his team at least can maybe play some exhibitions or something, whether that's blue and white or red and white or play Creighton or something. I think would be very healthy for every athlete if they can, for dealing with COVID.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to Bob, but would you guys check with your psychologist on campus and see if they have any open dates for me? I'm trying to figure this out myself, but thanks. I'll turn this to Bob.
Hey, Craig. Again, you and John were really excited about you guys coming on. You had mentioned a little bit about championships. What's your vision, on the national championship for this year?
Well, Again, I think the NCAA said the right things. There's nothing definitive yet. And so, if our team gets to play some matches this fall and we're continuing to plan, hey, we're going to have an SEC championship in the spring, we're going to keep going until, we're told no. And I think that, someone said, boy, I really feel sorry for, and I feel sorry for you. I feel so sorry for your players. And I agree. But at the same time, we signed up for learning how to deal with challenges. We're athletes, we're competitors, and we have to learn how to adapt and figure it out. And so once we know the path to the championship, then like John said, we can plan something. And so being in this uncertainty and inability to plan has made it very difficult. But if us as coaches continually ask our players to overcome challenges and learn how to adapt and learn how to overcome, different things thrown your way, we have to do the same thing. And has it been easy? No, absolutely not. We've done all kinds of things to try and stay on track, but until they say definitively no, that there's no NCAA championship, we have to figure there's going to be one and figure out how to, wade our way through that path to get there. And if it takes 3 left turns and 6 right turns and a roundabout and everything else, then we will do it. But I'm glad I'm doing it with the players I have because, we have a really mature group and, it helps when you recruit character and, high quality kids from good families because, like we've been continually saying here, it's going to be a challenge.
Well, John, let's say you're looking in your crystal ball. What do you think the structure of the tournament might look like? Because we know it's not going to happen in the fall, so the only other time it's going to happen is in the spring because all NCAA is concerned about in the winter is men's basketball.
Yeah, so let's see, it's probably been 3 months ago. We were in a Big Ten Zoom coaches call, and I couldn't take it anymore, and I just said, you guys, would we, because we're trying to figure all this stuff out with no answers. I said, we need to come up with a spring model right now, get it out, start getting into our SWAs, and say, we're going to the spring, that's what we want, because there's so many unknown things. So we started working on it. So we have a great spring schedule that would start a little bit later. So you'd actually start training late in January, start matches in mid-February. So, because one of the things we're going to have to overcome is, we got basketball conflicts. And whenever I hear that, I have to bite my tongue because basketball now starts October 1st. So all the small schools that have basketball, they're conflicting starting October 1st. So what difference does it make if you do it, in February? And the good thing in February, seasons are winding down. They start March Madness, if they start March Madness on time. And then we would go into conference schedules in March and April and then finish sometime in Omaha. We're supposed to host the Final Four this year. They can do it as late as May 23rd. And so we would like to run it or work backwards from May 23rd or May 17th and then work backwards. So have as late a spring as we can to avoid basketball conflicts as much as possible. Football is trying to play in the winter right now for the Big Ten. They're working really hard on that. They would play in indoor stadiums in Minneapolis, Indianapolis, Detroit. I think it would be awesome. We could get our own niche going, in April and May and have a pretty sweet tournament. But now, is the NCAA financially going to support a 64-team tournament? They're saying it's going to be reduced. We're fighting not to have that because, one model was thrown out was 32 teams, all automatic qualifiers, 1 at large. Okay, that would be a travesty, and what athletes aren't going to want to play. I mean, my players aren't going to want to play for that. We'll have to see what they come up with, but we've got a great plan, and we think it would work really well, and Omaha still could host it.
Well, here's another problem when you look at it from the NCAA standpoint. If everything's moving back into the winter and spring, I mean, they conceivably could have 60 championships going on at the same time. That might be virtually impossible for them to be able to man and conduct that many championships. So, last week I threw out an idea, that I thought had some merit. I'd like to get your reaction to it. And that was combining the men and women's championship. of course, I want to see the women stay with, 64 teams. We worked really hard over the years to get it up to that number of teams. So maybe the first 2 rounds, all right, the universities have to pay for their own way, and it's going to be pretty much monitored and supervised and run, just like it's always been done in the past in most cases, at the different regional sites. All right, then go to Omaha or wherever. All right, when you're down to your Sweet 16, and then join in with the men, and that way the NCAA is only running, one championship site, so to speak, for both sports, and that cuts their job from 60 down to 30, approximately. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is great. We put that in there that we would align with the men. The problem is the men's championships earlier in May, and we were trying to, so they could delay it all and go to one spot. Now I can tell you, we talked about Columbus, Ohio, maybe is that where the men's Final Four is?
Yeah. Yes,
Columbus,
that is.
So we've talked about moving it to Columbus, and Columbus has already given the thumbs up. We can do both. So, and that's something we propose is as a conference, we would support that. You guys have been in conference meetings with coaches. I've been in the Big Ten now for I don't know how many of those 19 years, but very rarely is there ever a unanimous vote on anything. We've been unanimous on everything leading up to all this, including that proposal right there as part of our proposal. That would be an adjustment. Like Craig said, you got to be willing to turn right, turn left, and we've made that very clear. We're willing to do anything to make it as good as we possibly can do it.
I think, Bob, going back to your point, I think having that many championships in the spring is one of the reasons why they announced that no eligibility would be compromised this year, to give athletes the freedom to be able to play no matter what's going to happen, because they'll have another year granted. The second reason is because I think that they're not 100% sure they can put on a championship. But with our sport being the most popular participated sport in the country for females, at the high school and collegiate level, I got to believe they're going to do whatever they can to put on an NCAA championship. And, I think ideally it'd be the end of May. I've heard, though, that maybe they couldn't do it all the way back into May because there's so many championships that late in May and June that they might do it earlier. And I think the men's crossover to have both of them the same event, that would be a pretty exciting situation, I think, to have that many great volleyball matches in the same venue in the same area that could be marketed around the country and even the world. That we'll do anything. If they're going to put on a championship, we'll figure out how to play it. Just let us know what it is. But if there's 32 automatic qualifiers and 32 teams in it, that gives a lot of reason for the Power 5 schools to say nope, and we'll have our own championship. And the NCAA probably doesn't want that to happen. So that will be interesting. That's no slight on mid-majors, because we know how valuable and how the possibility for them to compete. But if you look at the history of the championships, there's just all the champions have come from. You're not going to have the best teams in the championship if that's the case.
I think everybody wants to see the best teams when in a championship, when you get to the Division I level. That's what it's all about. Well, let's change gears a little bit, and I'm going to throw it to Ruth. I know she wants to talk a little bit about recruiting, and that's really a quagmire in itself. So,
of course. Hey, but first of all, Craig, the 20 hours you have that they may not wait, just throw it to John. Let him have those 20 hours this fall. He's not going to be doing as much. And John, I know you haven't been worried about how many times you beat me or played me, because we never did. So I'm glad you're rest assured. But recruiting, all right, what do we do with all these seniors, whether they play or not, and they've got another year's eligibility? And for all the Power 5 who have money, they might could afford that, but what do we do with them? What do you tell the high school coaches? High school kids now, be patient, like you guys are. But John, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Well, I'll be curious what Craig has to say, because I'm avoiding the conversation with our seniors right now, because, again, I don't have the answers. And one of the things that's really been a struggle for me as a coach is your players look for you for answers, right? But we don't have any answers, and they keep asking the question. I don't know, and so it's just been really hard on that relationship of players getting what they need, and we can't provide it. But what's going to happen is, without this year, this is not only going to impact next year's recruiting class, it's going to impact the next 3 after that, and in roster management. And so, for example, Wisconsin's already come out and said, we're not paying for any more of the spring guys that missed their championships. We're not paying for them to come back. And a lot of schools went that route. Some schools said that. Now you're talking about fall sports, and we just laid off, furloughed 51 people, took a pay cut, and that's at Nebraska. And we're a financially independent athletic department.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the stress financially at a lot of these other schools, and how are they going to afford to have, and how are we going to manage rosters of adding another 4 or 5 freshmen to the current group we already have. So I don't have the answers, and what we're doing to answer your question about the recruits coming in, we're just telling them we're on schedule, we're planning, and we're just got to ride with it. But there's a lot of anxiety with those families and those kids. Well, what if your seniors stay? What does that do for me? And so it's going to create a lot of problems. And I just know the Big Ten, when they announced that they're granting a year for everybody, the Big Ten was adamantly opposed to that.
Mm-hmm.
Adamantly.
Okay. Hey, Craig, all we need is 18 scholarships now for volleyball, and we'd be okay, right?
Absolutely. Just bring them on. Just more the merrier. And, John and I are lucky to be at schools that are, financially sustainable amongst themselves, so I can't imagine some of the challenges financially that schools are going to go through, and even ours. Like John said, there's issues everywhere. And I don't think we're really going to know all the answers to what our seniors want to do until they go through this year. And do we play a championship or not? So asking them to decide if they want to come back the following year, I have a pretty idea what my seniors will say in some situations, but I may not be 100% accurate. And I've talked to more club coaches in the last week just about that. And like John said, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I know we're going to have some honest conversations. And I'm glad that we've had honest conversations through the recruiting process to know that's how we'll handle it when these types of things come up. But, you don't want a player and a coach doesn't want to have 22 people on the roster, especially if they were recruited on scholarship and told they were going to, be one of the 4 middles to compete throughout their career. And then all of a sudden, if they're one of 6 or 7 middles or whatever position it is, and then you have to have some honest conversations about your depth chart and where that may lay. And it'll be tough, and it'll be tough for us. It'll be tough for the club coaches. It'll be tough for the recruits. It'll be tough for parents. So a lot of I don't know is ahead of us, but.
Well, you've learned to adapt, right?
What's that?
You've learned to adapt. Okay, so we've run out of time, and I'm going to go to Mick, but I want to thank both of you because I know that there's a lot of parents that are viewing this, and the nice part about it is being patient. They're seeing what you're going through, and now they see it's the same thing they're going through. So Mick, for you to close out and talk about next week.
Well, thanks, Ruth. I just mentioned one thing. John, you took yourself out of the setting there at Nebraska, went up north to Idaho. You got to be really antsy to get back. Maybe you should also schedule one with your counselors there when you get back, because you've gone from the frying pan to the fire. It seems like I don't know. I'd go nuts up there if I don't get to fish. Then I would be doing something. But both of you guys, thanks. This has been absolutely enjoyable because we've gotten some pretty straight answers of what you know and what you don't know. And I really think all of us thank you so very much for coming on. Next week, and you might be interested in this, next week we are going to have 2 more coaches on. Tom Black, for one, from Georgia, the head coach at Georgia, and the Canadian women's volleyball coach, national team coach, will be on, along with Chris Poole, who's been his own advocate for going through and checking out different possibilities of the way tournaments could be run and all of these things, and has gone beyond himself to send out to all the coaches that he has email addresses of to get his ideas out and elicit their ideas, the other coaches' ideas. So I think we have two coaches that are also in different conferences that are pushing. I know, Craig, you told me that Tom Block had some unique ideas in your meetings in the Southeast Conference phone calls. So we're excited to hear from both of those, and I hope all of you people will join us that are listening now. Will join us for the after talk between the five of us. But coaches, thanks for being on, and we appreciate you taking your valuable time.
Yeah, sure, Mick. Thanks. And I'm just curious, this only goes a half hour because you guys got golf. That's a retired life. It's only a half hour Zoom. This is the shortest Zoom I've been on in 3 months.
Okay, guys. All right. For those
Thanks, Craig. Thanks,
for those
John.
interested in
You're
hosting,
welcome. See you guys.
for those
Bye.
interested,
See you, John.
for those interested in hosting a Master Coaches virtual clinic this fall for your team or your coaches, or an in-person clinic in 2021, please go to our Instagram, VD Master Coaches, click on our bio, and click the link to virtual clinics, or you may scan our QR code that takes you directly to all of our information. Join us next week for Master Coaches Weekly Buzz. Follow us on Volleyball Master Coaches, Twitter and Instagram, VB Master Coaches. All of our weekly buzz shows are on YouTube, and you may access these by going directly to our Instagram account. Click on the link in the bio and enjoy listening to leaders like John and Craig in our sport address current issues and trends. For all those Facebook Live viewers, you have asked, and we are delivering a new series called Buzz Reaction. This will preview after our host, John Foreman, closes each show. Join us today for a first live discussion and fun with Master Coaches. Now let's go to our host, John Foreman, who will update us on his upcoming coaching conversations and an update on the Nye Mavericks. And John, by the way, how many Zoom conversations have you been on since March 8th?
It's got to be triple digits. Easy triple digits. I mean, I did 50-something coaching conversations so far. That by itself. What was this, number 19 for Buzz?
Yes,
Is that right?
19.
So, all right, that's 70-something already there. Never mind talking with players and recruits and everybody else. So yeah, I'm getting really used, real comfortable with Zoom right now. As for my dad, things are getting interesting. I just had an email while we were on with my parking lot duties for this weekend when the kids are moving in to the dorms, because they got us coaches, making sure the traffic circulation is right, so we can get everybody going in the right direction. They're actually reversing the circuit around campus, because normally you drive clockwise. Now you're going to go around counterclockwise to facilitate better dorm access. So this is going to be interesting. But yeah, so for everybody for the light humor. More of this next week on the Buzz, in the next few minutes on the Buzz. And make sure you stay updated on any coaching conversations I'm able to manage to squeeze in and around all the other stuff that's going on. CoachingVB.com, at CoachingVB on Twitter. Obviously, those of you on Facebook, Coaching Volleyball is the Facebook page.